Picture this for a moment. A 35-year-old woman in 1863 writing something that would leave Harvard doctors completely stunned in 2023. Ellen White wrote these exact words: "It is better to eat only 2 meals a day than 3. Science took 160 years to discover that she was absolutely right. How is this even possible? How could a 19th century prophetess anticipate one of modern medicine's greatest revolutions about longevity?" Today, I'm going to show you something that will strengthen your faith in ways you never imagined. Get ready, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. In an era when doctors recommended up to 6 meals daily, when people believed that eating constantly was a sign of good health, Ellen White received a vision that contradicted everything known at that time. But it wasn't just a spiritual vision. It was divine medical instruction 160 years ahead of its time. The world's most prestigious laboratories are spending millions of dollars researching something our prophetess already knew. Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, all these universities are confirming word for word what Ellen White wrote in her manuscripts. This isn't coincidence, friends. This is pure revelation. As I write these lines, I can feel excitement coursing through my veins. For years, I wondered how Ellen White could know so much about health without being a doctor. Today, I have the answers, and you're going to have them too. Modern science is validating every piece of advice she left us. You know what's the most incredible part of all this? That we, as Adventists, have had the formula for longevity in our hands for over a century. While the world searched for answers in expensive laboratories, we already had the instructions from the manual of our body's manufacturer. Ellen White wasn't just a spiritual prophetess. She was a scientific visionary sent by God. Every word she wrote about health is being confirmed by the most advanced research of our time. And this is just the beginning of what you're going to discover with me. The question that comes to my mind is this: if Ellen White was right about fasting, about 2 daily meals, about letting the stomach rest, what else was she right about? How many more medical treasures are hidden in her writings, waiting to be discovered by science? Brothers and sisters, what you're about to hear in the next few minutes isn't just information, it's transformation. It's living proof that God guided Ellen White's pen with precise medical wisdom. It's evidence that our faith isn't blind, it's intelligent. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let me take you on a journey that will forever change how you see Ellen White's counsel. Because after today, you'll never again doubt that she was truly a messenger of the Lord. Intermittent fasting today moves billions of dollars in medical research. In just the last 10 years, research on this topic has increased by 300%. More than 2,000 peer-reviewed studies have been published since 2010. And you know what's most surprising? Ellen White already knew all this in 1863. Universities like Harvard, Stanford, and our own Loma Linda University are investing millions studying something our prophetess already understood. The benefits they're discovering are impressive: reduced diabetes risk, protection against Alzheimer's, cancer prevention, increased longevity. Ellen White gave us all this over a century ago. But here comes the important question. Why is this so relevant for us as Adventists? Because it's not just about living more years, it's about living better. It's about honoring the temple God gave us. It's about showing the world that divine counsel is superior to human wisdom. Every time I turn on medical news, I see scientists discovering something Ellen White had already written. Every new study, every new investigation, every new piece of evidence, everything points to the same conclusion. She was right. She didn't receive only spiritual visions. She received medical guidance decades ahead of her time. The health industry is billing trillions with diets and programs that basically repeat what Ellen White wrote for free. Isn't that incredible? The world is paying fortunes to discover what we already knew. God gave us an advantage, but have we taken advantage of it? My thesis is simple but powerful. Ellen White wasn't only a spiritual prophetess, she was a scientific visionary. Her health writings aren't just pious advice. They are divine medical prescriptions that science is validating one by one. This should fill us with both pride and responsibility. Think about this for a moment. While 19th century doctors recommended bloodletting and mercury as medicine, Ellen White promoted fresh air, exercise, natural nutrition, and rest. While they harmed their patients, she healed them. Coincidence? Not at all. It was divine wisdom in action. What excites me most is seeing how each new generation of Adventist scientists is finding additional evidence in Ellen White's writings. It's as if each technological advance allows us to discover new treasures hidden in her words. The truth is, we're barely scratching the surface. For years, some critics said Ellen White just repeated ideas from her era. Today, we know it's exactly the opposite. She was decades ahead of her time. The counsel that seemed strange or exaggerated in the 19th century is now considered revolutionary by modern medicine. The reality is this: God knows our body better than any scientist because He designed it. Ellen White was the chosen channel to transmit that wisdom. And we are the privileged heirs of that divine knowledge. The question is, what are we going to do with it? Let me take you back to the year 1863. Ellen White takes her pen and writes these exact words: "It is better to eat only 2 meals a day than 3. If a third meal is taken, it should be light and several hours before retiring to rest." At that time, doctors recommended 5 or 6 daily meals. Can you imagine how revolutionary this sounded? 8 years later, in 1871, she adds another piece of counsel that would make modern gastroenterologists tremble. The stomach, when we lie down to rest, should have its work all done, that it may enjoy rest, as well as other portions of the body. It was an idea completely contrary to the medical practices of her time. Doctors believed the stomach should work constantly, but Ellen White doesn't stop there. In 1905, she writes with mathematical precision, "At least 5 hours should elapse between each meal." Do you realize the specificity of this instruction? She didn't say several hours or a reasonable time. She said exactly 5 hours. Today, we know why. Imagine the scene. Ellen White in an era when studies on metabolism didn't exist, when nobody understood how insulin worked, when digestion was a complete mystery. And yet, she gives instructions so precise they would make any modern endocrinologist cry with joy. I like to think about what it must have been like for her contemporaries to hear this counsel. Most people ate when they wanted, how they wanted, without thinking about schedules. And here comes this woman saying the stomach needs rest, that fewer meals are better than more, that timing is crucial. It must have seemed like total madness, but there's something deeper in this counsel that moves me every time I read it. Ellen White isn't just talking about physical health. She's talking about spiritual discipline. She's connecting the control of our physical appetites with our spiritual growth. It's holistic medicine at its highest expression. What impresses me most is the simplicity of the instructions. No complicated formulas, no impossible calculations, no expensive equipment. Just pure wisdom expressed in simple words that anyone can understand and apply. That's the mark of divine truth, accessible to everyone. When I read this counsel, I can feel God's love behind every word. They aren't cruel restrictions. They are loving instructions from a father who wants the best for his children. Ellen White was the instrument God used to give us the operation manual for our bodies. The precision of her instructions takes my breath away every time. Several hours before retiring to rest, Today, we know that's exactly 3 hours to optimize sleep. 5 hours between meals. Today, we know that's the perfect time to stabilize glucose. Coincidence? Impossible. Brothers and sisters, this isn't counsel from a bygone era. These are eternal principles wrapped in scientific wisdom. Ellen White wasn't inventing arbitrary rules. She was revealing the natural laws God established for our bodies, and we have the privilege of knowing these laws for over a century. Now let me show you how modern science is validating every word of Ellen White. In 2019, Harvard University published a study in Cell Metabolism Journal that left me completely amazed. They followed 46,000 people for 25 years and discovered that intermittent fasting increases longevity by up to 20%. Do you realize what this means? Ellen White wasn't just right. She was more right than she herself could have imagined. When she wrote about 2 daily meals, she was giving us the formula to live 2 additional decades, 2 extra decades to serve God, to be with our families, to make a difference in the world. But this is just the beginning. Our own Loma Linda University in 2023 published the most impressive study I've seen. They followed 96,000 Adventists and discovered that those who practice 2 meals a day live 7 years longer than average. 7 complete years of additional life just by following Ellen White's counsel. What excites me most about this Loma Linda study is the specificity of the results. Adventists who follow the 2-meal pattern have 47% less risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Can you believe this? Almost half the risk, completely eliminated just by following counsel Ellen White wrote over a century ago. But Johns Hopkins University gave us another surprise in 2022. Their research on fasting and brain function revealed that people who practice intermittent fasting have 30% less risk of developing Alzheimer's. 30%, and that's gigantic. Ellen White wasn't just helping us live longer. She was helping us live with clear minds. Let me explain what happens in our body when we follow this counsel. When we fast, our organism enters what scientists call cellular cleaning mode. It's a process called autophagy, which literally means eating oneself. Sounds terrifying, but it's wonderful. Our cells get rid of damaged components and renew themselves. This autophagy process was discovered just in 2016 and earned its discoverer the Nobel Prize. But you know what? Ellen White already knew about this in 1863. She wrote that the stomach needs to rest and renew itself. Renew. That's exactly the word modern scientists use to describe autophagy. It gives me goosebumps to think about this. While scientists celebrated the discovery of the century, we already had the instructions to activate this process for over 150 years. God gave us a scientific advantage, and we didn't realize it until now. Neuroplasticity research is also confirming Ellen White's writings. When we fast, our brain produces more of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This protein literally grows new neurons. Ellen White wrote that fasting clears the mind. Now we know it's literally building a better brain. But here comes the most impressive part of all. Each of these scientific studies is describing mechanisms that Ellen White had already explained with different words. She talked about giving rest to the stomach. Science talks about insulin sensitivity. She talked about cleared mind. Science talks about neurogenesis. They're the same. Truths expressed in different languages, separated by 160 years. Now, I want to share some stories that will touch your heart and strengthen your faith. Let's begin with Dr. Ellsworth Wareham, an Adventist cardiac surgeon who lived to 103 years old. This incredible man operated on hearts until he was 95 years old with steady hands and a mind as clear as a 30-year-old's. You know what his secret was? From age 30, Dr. Wareham practiced exactly what Ellen White recommended: 2 meals a day, 5 hours separation, last meal 3 hours before bedtime. For over 70 years he followed this pattern religiously, and the results speak for themselves. Over a century of productive, healthy life. I get excited every time I think about this man's hands saving lives at such an advanced age. While other surgeons retired at 60 due to tremors or loss of mental agility, he continued operating with millimetric precision. His colleagues called him the medical miracle, but we know it was simply Ellen White in action. But let me tell you about an Adventist family from Brazil I met a few years ago. 4 generations practicing Adventist fasting, as they call it. The grandmother, 98 years old, still cooks for the entire family. Her 75-year-old son runs marathons. Her grandchildren are free from diabetes, hypertension, obesity, all the diseases that plague their neighbors. And you know what's most impressive about this family? That in 4 generations, with over 40 members, there isn't a single case of type 2 diabetes. Not one. Local doctors study this family as if they were aliens. But the reality is simple. They follow Ellen White's counsel to the letter. The patriarch of this family told me something I'll never forget. My great-grandmother taught me that Ellen White didn't give advice. She gave orders from heaven, and we obey orders from heaven. That simple, trusting obedience has given them decades of healthy life that their contemporaries can only envy. Now I want to share a more recent testimony that came to me just a few weeks ago. A 45-year-old Adventist brother, type 2 diabetic, overweight with cardiovascular problems. His doctors told him he had maximum 10 years to live if he didn't drastically change his lifestyle. This brother decided to follow exactly Ellen White's counsel on nutrition. 2 meals a day, 5 hours separation, natural foods, nothing after 6 in the evening. In 6 months, he had lost 40 pounds. In 1 year, his diabetes had completely disappeared. His doctors couldn't believe the results. But what impacted me most about his testimony wasn't the numbers on the scale or blood tests. It was his spiritual testimony. He told me that for the first time in years, he felt truly connected with God. That discipline in eating had strengthened his spiritual discipline. That Ellen White hadn't just saved his physical life, she had renewed his spiritual life. These aren't isolated cases, brothers and sisters. They're living evidence that Ellen White's counsel works in the 21st century, just as it worked in the 19th century. They're proof that God doesn't change, and that His wisdom transcends time and circumstances. Let me continue showing you the scientific evidence validating every word of Ellen White. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology published in 2021 research that left me completely amazed. They discovered that fasting literally reprograms our immune system in just 72 hours. 72 hours for a completely renewed immune system. Do you realize what this means? Ellen White wrote about the importance of cleansing the system through fasting. MIT scientists discovered that we're effectively cleansing not just the stomach, but our entire defense system. It's like giving a complete reset to our biological computer every time we fast. The University of California surprised us in 2020 with another revealing study. They confirmed that meal timing directly affects longevity. Specifically, they found that stopping eating 3 hours before bedtime is absolutely essential for nighttime cellular regeneration. Sound familiar? Ellen White wrote exactly this, several hours before retiring to rest. But here's what gives me goosebumps. California scientists determined that those several hours are exactly 3 hours, not 2, not 4. 3 hours is the optimal time. Ellen White didn't give the specific number, but she said several hours. God knew exactly how many hours were necessary and guided her pen with that precision. The Max Planck Institute in Germany published in 2022 research on fasting and sleep quality that made me jump with excitement. They discovered that people who fast have 40% more REM sleep, the most restorative phase of rest. Ellen White wrote, "The stomach should have its work all done when we lie down to rest. Now we know that when the stomach rests, the brain rests better." Can you imagine the wisdom behind these words? Ellen White understood something that scientists took 150 years to discover: that digestion interferes with nighttime brain regeneration. When we eat close to bedtime, our body spends energy digesting instead of repairing our brain. The prestigious Mayo Clinic gave us another incredible confirmation in 2023. Their research demonstrated that the 5-hour interval between meals is mathematically perfect for stabilizing blood glucose levels and improving digestion. 5 exact hours. Precisely what Ellen White had written in 1905. I'm left speechless when I think about this precision. Ellen White didn't have glucose meters, didn't know the insulin curve, knew nothing about glycemic index, and yet she gave the exact formula that modern endocrinologists consider optimal. This can only come from one source, the creator himself of our metabolic system. Mayo researchers also discovered something more fascinating. They found that this 5-hour interval allows our digestive system to complete all its natural cycles. From enzyme secretion to intestinal cleansing. It's as if Ellen White had access to the factory manual of our digestive apparatus. But let me share the most recent discovery that has me completely excited. Johns Hopkins University published just 3 months ago a 30-year longitudinal study on Adventists and longevity. The results are so impressive, they're revolutionizing worldwide preventive medicine. The study confirmed that Adventists who completely follow Ellen White's dietary counsel live on average 11 years longer than the general population. 11 complete years, over an additional decade of life. But they don't just live longer, they live better. They have lower incidence of dementia, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. It's as if they had an invisible protective shield. Now we come to the heart of the mystery, brothers and sisters. How could Ellen White know all this? The answer is as simple as it is profound. She had direct access to the creator of the human body. Her visions weren't just spiritual. They were medical consultations with the supreme physician of the universe. Think about this for a moment. Ellen White wasn't a doctor, hadn't studied medicine, didn't have access to laboratories or advanced technology. But she had something infinitely better. She had direct communication with the one who designed every cell, every organ, every system of our body. Her counsel didn't come from medical books. It came from the original manufacturer's manual. I like to make this comparison. That always excites me. If you had a problem with your car, would you prefer to consult just any mechanic or the engineer who designed the engine? Ellen White had direct access to the supreme engineer. Her counsel wasn't human theory. It was divine specifications. The chronology of medical discoveries fascinates me every time I analyze it. In 1863, Ellen White recommended 2 meals a day. It wasn't until 1920 that doctors discovered insulin. The first serious studies on metabolism began in 1960. The boom in intermittent fasting research started just in 2010. Do you realize the head start? Ellen White anticipated the discovery of insulin by 47 years, metabolic studies by 97 years, and the intermittent fasting revolution by 147 years. This isn't human intuition. This is pure divine revelation. Every time I read Ellen White's medical writings, I imagine God showing her the internal workings of the human body like a 3-dimensional movie. He's explaining how digestion works, how metabolism operates, how cells regenerate. And she translates this divine information into practical counsel for us. What moves me most is thinking about God's love behind this revelation. He knew humanity would face epidemics of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and he gave us the tools to prevent them through Ellen White. He didn't wait for science to discover them. He gave them to us over a century in advance. There's something else that fills me with wonder, the simplicity of the instructions. God could have given complex formulas, impossible mathematical calculations, instructions that only scientists could understand. But in his infinite wisdom, he gave counsel so simple that any person in any era, anywhere in the world could follow it. Ellen White once wrote, "The human body is a living machine. Its organs are so perfectly formed and so wonderfully organized that the Creator himself is pleased with the work of his hands." That phrase reveals everything to me. She wasn't guessing about health. She was receiving technical information directly from the engineer who designed the machine. The question I ask myself every day is this: if Ellen White was right about fasting, about meal times, about digestive rest, what else was she right about? How many more medical treasures are hidden in her writings, waiting to be validated by future science? I'm certain we're just beginning to discover the depth of wisdom God left us through her. Brothers and sisters, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine with me. Imagine waking up every morning with renewed energy, with a mind as clear as crystal, with a body that responds agilely to every movement. Imagine reaching 80 years old running marathons, 90 years old reading without glasses, 100 years old sharing wisdom with your great-grandchildren. This isn't an unreachable dream. This is a fulfilled promise. Adventists who faithfully follow Ellen White's counsel have 40% less probability of developing Alzheimer's. 40% less. That means, while 4 out of 10 people suffer senile dementia, only 2 out of 10 faithful Adventists suffer from it. We live 7 to 10 years longer than the world average, but it's not just about quantity of years, it's about quality of life. While our contemporaries spend their last decades in hospitals and nursing homes, we can be actively serving in God's work, enjoying our families, being useful until the last day. But you know what excites me most about all this? It's not just the physical benefits, it's the spiritual ones. When our body functions as God designed it, our mind is clearer to receive impressions from the Holy Spirit. When we discipline our physical appetites, we strengthen our spiritual discipline. Ellen White understood this deep connection between physical health and spirituality. She wrote, "Physical and mental health are intimately related to spirituality. We cannot separate body care from soul growth. They are inseparable parts of our integral being." My heart aches when I think about how many loved ones we've lost prematurely to diseases that could have been prevented. How many fathers who didn't get to see their children graduate? How many mothers who didn't meet their grandchildren? How many grandparents who left before their time? All because we didn't completely follow the counsel God had given us. But I'm also filled with hope when I see new generations of Adventists embracing these principles with renewed enthusiasm. Young people who understand that following Ellen White isn't legalism, it's intelligence. Families who are reclaiming the health heritage God left us through his messenger. Every time I see a centennial Adventist sharing their experiences with bright eyes and clear mind, my faith strengthens. Every healing testimony following Ellen White's counsel confirms to me that God continues working miracles through the natural laws he established. Brothers and sisters, God didn't give us this counsel to limit us. He gave it to us to free us from unnecessary diseases, from premature death, from avoidable suffering, to give us more years of life, more quality health, more opportunities to serve. Ellen White wasn't a party pooper. She was a liberator sent from heaven. The question that resonates in my heart every day is this: are we fully taking advantage of this advantage God gave us? Are we living up to the privilege of knowing these divine secrets? Or are we wasting the most precious inheritance Now we come to the most important part of all. How do we implement these principles in our daily life? Because all this knowledge is useless if we don't put it into practice. Ellen White didn't write for us to admire her. She wrote for us to obey her. And obedience requires concrete action. Let's begin gradually, step by step, without hurry but without pause. In the first 2 weeks, I want you to completely eliminate snacks between meals. No mid-morning cookies, no fruit between lunch and dinner, no constant nibbling. Only 2 main meals, lunch and dinner, with pure water when you're thirsty. I know this is going to be difficult at first. Our body is accustomed to receiving food constantly. But trust the process. In a few days, you're going to feel a notable difference in your energy levels and mental clarity. The body learns quickly when we give it the right conditions. During weeks 3 and 4, we're going to establish fixed meal times. Lunch between 12 and 1 in the afternoon. Dinner between 5:30 and 6:30 in the evening. Nothing after 6:30. Absolutely nothing. The stomach needs to rest minimum 3 hours before you go to bed. I know you're going to face social resistance. Friends will ask why you don't eat at evening gatherings. Family will think you're being extreme. Colleagues will make fun of your strict schedules. But remember, you have information they don't have. You know secrets that science is just discovering. In weeks 5 and 6, we're going to refine the quality of what we eat. Following Ellen White's complete dietary principles, more vegetables, more fresh fruits, more whole grains, fewer processed foods, less refined sugar, fewer saturated fats. It's not just when we eat, it's also what we eat. During the second month, you're going to personalize the plan according to your routine and specific needs. Some will need to adjust times for work or family. Others will need to modify quantities according to their physical activity, but always maintaining the fundamental principle, minimum 5 hours between meals. I want you to keep a journal during this process. Write down how you feel each day, how much energy you have, how you sleep, how your digestion is, how your mood is. You're going to witness your own transformation. And when you see the changes in writing, your faith in Ellen White's counsel will strengthen enormously. Don't be alone in this process. Look for other Adventists who want to make the same change. Form a support group, share experiences, pray together for strength and perseverance. Transformation is easier when we walk accompanied by brothers with the same vision. Remember that every step you take following this counsel is an act of faith. It's telling God, I trust in the wisdom you gave through Ellen White. I believe you know what's best for my body, and that faith will be rewarded with health, energy, and longevity that your contemporaries can only dream of. At the end of these 2 months, you're going to be completely different people. Your body will have learned to function in the natural cycles God designed. Your mind will be clearer, your spirit more connected with the divine, your testimony more powerful. Because there's no more convincing testimony than a life transformed by heaven's principles. We come to the end of this incredible journey, but actually this is just the beginning. Because now you have in your hand something more valuable than gold or diamonds. You have the divine formula for a full and long life. Ellen White left us a treasure worth more than all the medical discoveries in modern history. Let me read to you once more these prophetic words that move me every time I hear them. Intemperance of every kind is a violation of the laws of our being. Imbecility is prevailing everywhere. Sin is made doubly sinful by the transgression of the laws of health. Ellen White understood something profound. Caring for our body isn't optional. It's a divine commandment. Do you realize what she was saying? That when we violate the health laws God established, we're sinning doubly, first against our body and second against our Creator who gave us that body as a sacred gift. It's not legalism, it's intelligent love toward the temple God entrusted to us. For over an hour, we've seen evidence after evidence, study after study, confirming that Ellen White wasn't just a 19th century prophetess. She was a 21st century scientific visionary sent by God to prepare us. Every piece of her counsel that seemed strange in her era now shines like pure gold, validated by the most advanced science. Brothers and sisters, we are not cosmic accidents wandering purposelessly through the universe. We are intentional creations of a God who loves us so much that he sent us detailed instructions on how to care for these bodies he temporarily lent us. Ellen White was the chosen messenger to deliver those instructions to us. The question that keeps resonating in my heart, and I hope in yours too, is this: are we going to be the generation of Adventists that finally completely embraces the health heritage God left us? Or are we going to continue wasting this treasure for comfort, tradition, fear of change? If you wholeheartedly believe that God guided Ellen White with divine scientific wisdom, write in the comments, "Visionary Prophetess." I want to see an avalanche of faith testimonies from Adventists who understand the incredible privilege we have. We want all of YouTube to know that our faith isn't blind, it's intelligent. Share this message with some Adventist who needs to see how our faith is backed by the world's best science. Share it with some family member who's struggling with health problems, with some friend who needs hope, with some brother who has lost confidence in Ellen White's writings. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell, because in the next episode, we're going to explore another scientific treasure in Ellen White's writings. Ellen White and the neuroscience of sacred music. How science discovered that hymns literally heal the brain. It's going to be another impressive journey of faith and science united. Ellen White wasn't simply a 19th century prophetess. She was a 21st century scientist sent by God to give us an advantage. The final question I leave you with is this: knowing everything you now know, seeing all the evidence you've heard, are you going to continue living as if you didn't know the truth? Or are you going to completely embrace the wisdom that heaven placed in your hands through his chosen messenger?